Melanie. I'm our Assistant Director of Business Operations in the Housing and Residential Life Department. And I'm going to go ahead and let Sonora introduce herself in just a second. Just so you know what's going on today, Sonora is going to share with you all a little bit about what the experience is going to be like living on campus next year. And we've done one of these before, telling you just some updates about the logistics of living on campus, but now she's going to talk about the super awesome part, which is the experience. So she'll talk about that, and then we will start answering any questions that you have. Please pop those in the Q&A, and then we will address all of those once Sonora has shared with you. So Sonora, you want to take it over?
Yes, I can. Hello, everybody. Like Melanie said, my name is Sonora Hernandez, and I am a residential life coordinator here, and I oversee Pierce Hall. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do, what this whole thing is about, and then a little bit about what we do for engagement for students. So my position, probably if you've been to other universities, gotten tours, heard information, it's a hall director, resident director. Essentially, I'm professional live-in staff. So I oversee all the student staff in our building. You may have heard of them as RAs, resident assistants. We call them community advisors. So I am in charge of basically coaching them through their leadership positions, guiding them through navigating difficult conversations, helping roommates with issues, helping them plan programs for residents, and essentially just making sure that the living on campus experience is a fun one and a safe one and an engaging one. I also am a resource for students to come and chat with, whether it's talking about life, maybe some academic trouble, maybe some conduct trouble, which I know students don't want to get into, but sometimes, you know, things happen, and I'm here as a person to be a support through that and to help students kind of navigate through that. So I've been doing this for, going into my 4th year professionally. I did it for 2 years as a grad student, and I lived on campus all 4 years of my undergrad. So I've actually been living in a residence hall going on 9 years. So I love what I do. I love being involved in housing. It's a great experience to be on campus. It's a different type of experience than living off. So a little bit about what we do. We do have a programming model that we have for students, and the way that we kind of code ours is a model called PACE, and each letter stands for a different piece of that. So personal growth, academic success, community thinking, and equity. And there's a focus with first-year students and the track that they're on, and then with returner students who are at a different pace or a different level than maybe the first-year students. So we really try to make sure we are providing opportunities for engagement with everybody, for learning and for fun when you're living in the residence halls, because we know a lot of learning happens in the classroom, but we want to make sure maybe some more of those life skills happen outside of the classroom, especially with this being a home for a lot of people. We want it to be somewhere you feel safe and comfortable and can have fun, but also we throw in some of that learning too. So in the fall, things will be different when it comes to engagement and living on campus and the experience. COVID has taught us a lot. I'm sure all of you know that. It's been probably a funky time for all of y'all as well. So we've been really trying to work hard to see how we can keep students engaged, keep students feeling like they're in an experience when housing's gonna look very different. So our plan is to contact students 2 to 3 times a quarter minimum to just see how you're doing. To talk through, like, what are you feeling? What are some struggles you may be having? What are some exciting things you may be having? Or maybe going through, giving you some resources, those kinds of things. So we will be making an effort to check in, whether y'all engage with us or want to reach back out to us. We like to leave that up to students, but we do reach out and try to use email. Sometimes we'll do some text. Some of y'all may have gotten texts from the housing office. We've even done Zoom calls with people. We use Instagram a lot. So we really try to just engage and connect with y'all. So we will be reaching out with students. We also are gonna have something along the lines of student leadership, kind of like community council type of thing. So really it's about students coming together to essentially decide what we're going to do with the money that we have for students. We do get some funding that allows us to do different things in the hall, whether it's programmatic or maybe buying some fun things for the halls. In the past, we've had people buy Nintendo Switches. We have lots of pots and pans. People love that. We have lots of board games. obviously, with all the rules of how we need to social distance or what that will look like in the fall, there may be some limited resources, but the hope is to still be able to have people come together to plan some fun things while living in the halls. And tell us what to do with our money, because students know what's great, what's fun, what's exciting. I'm not that much older than college students, and still I feel a little bit out of touch. So yeah, we will have something like that in the fall for people to engage with. And yeah, really that's it. I want to keep what I'm talking about short and sweet so y'all can ask some questions, but we really want to work together to make sure students have the best kind of engaging experience that they can. So yeah, that's my little spiel about Res Life, and I'm happy to answer more questions, more specific questions about halls, about experience here, especially at Eastern, my experience. So yeah, Melanie, anything else you want to touch on?
Well, Sonora, this spring has been a real test run for what fall is going to look like. We've really had to change a lot of what we do and find different ways to engage with students. So can you talk about some of the things you've already been doing this spring to be in connection with our students, and just what kind of experiences they've been able to have that we might see translate into fall quarter?
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. So we have been working really hard to find ways to engage virtually. We do still have people on campus, and so my colleagues and I have really tried to figure out how do we help people who are living in single rooms still feel like a part of the community. So we really have honed in on Instagram. That's kind of been our mode of engagement. We do live streams every Friday at 5 p.m. So you absolutely are more than welcome to tune into those. Typically it's been myself and my colleague Josh Scroggins, who oversees another residence hall. We'll do different giveaways. We'll do different questions. We'll have people be featured during the live stream. So that's been a really fun thing to do. Another thing we've done is we created these little fun party boxes that have a bunch of goodies inside of them, and we'll do deliveries to people's doors on campus to say, hey, you engaged with us, we want to make you feel special, and here you go, here's a little fun party box. So we've done that. We have a podcast that a different RLC has taken charge of. It's called Burned Popcorn. It's actually on the housing website. You could listen to it, and it gives more updates and more information sometimes that we can't cover in the live stream, because we want to make sure it's short and sweet and to the point. And so in the podcast, Isai Vela, he really kind of breaks stuff down, gives more information. It's super fun. We also will do giveaways. We gave away some AirPods. We're going to give away a Switch soon. So we're really trying to use the money we have to give back, and also make it things that people want, not just things that we think are cool. So we hope to continue that stuff. I know Josh also got some like murder mystery cases in the mail to give people who are interested. They can do like a murder mystery case from a company that does it. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of that, and really finding different ways to engage. So I know there's people interested in having little pen pals even in the halls. So we hope to keep on doing that and engaging in that way. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. So Annie, I see you posted a question here about how we plan to engage with students even though we have to follow these guidelines. And so Sonora's talked about some of that. I would also add that similar to how the Washington State governor has issued this phases approach to reopening things, we're kind of following those guidelines. And so we're watching and seeing what he's going to let us do and let the community at large do. And then we're kind of mimicking that on campus the best way that we know how. And so as we progress through those phases, obviously we're able to spend more time with other people outside our home and stuff like that. So you'll see more opportunities pop up both within the halls and on campus in general. We have some really awesome campus partners in SAIL, which is Student Activities, Involvement, and Leadership. Sometimes you just hear that called student activities. We have awesome partners there that are putting on events and creating engagement there even now, but we'll just see that expand as those opportunities arise. And we'll be doing the same thing in the halls. We have been, pretty good about keeping some distance in our lounges and stuff like that. And Sonora, maybe you could speak to that a little bit, how people have been connecting in the lounges and the kitchens now, even during spring quarter.
Sure. Yeah, that is a great point. So, I'll talk about my building. My building is one of the buildings that's open this spring. I have a little kitchenette on each of the floors. There are 10 floors. Yes, 10 floors that are functioning right now with residents, and people use them to cook. Lots of residents cooking every single day. I also have a first floor kitchen that also has an area for TVs, pool in a normal sense. We could do pool and ping pong. We're not checking that equipment out right now. But there are a couple TV stations in the kitchen, and people have been really great with, if people are using the kitchen facility and other people want to use it, they'll kind of wait, hang out, about 2 people usually. They'll sit over and wait till the other person's done, and then they'll use that facility. In the other building, Sinyamin Suit is the one that is also open. It's our newest hall. People use the study rooms and the end lounges and again, do that social distancing, but still talk to each other and engage in that way. And we'll also use the facilities. They have kitchens on each of those floors too. So people are being really great. We don't have to do a ton of monitoring of people saying, don't be next to each other. And a lot of people being in space at once. People are kind of self-regulating, like, oh, I see someone there, I'm gonna wait till they're done before I jump in. But yeah, we have people cooking every single day. We have people bringing down their own little gaming systems and hooking up to a TV just to get out of their rooms for a little bit. And same happening in the other hall. So yes, it is going to look different with how the phases are working with what the governor is telling us. But we do have an opportunity for people to get to still engage. You don't have to just be in your room 24/7. Like, we do have some options for that.
Okay, great. I'm going to answer and run through a couple kind of logistics questions that are on here sort of quickly. So Blake McVeigh, you asked us when you'll be finding out which halls you're in. And that is a great question. We will be doing our first round of assignments the second week of July. So that's when you can expect to find out which building you've been placed in. As far as which buildings we're going to have open, we're still not making any promises. We really need to know how many people we have staying with us before we can make those final decisions, so that we place you in the best possible spot and so that we're not changing your assignment and frantically changing things around at the last minute. So that's kind of when you can expect to find that out. And then Olga Franco, you also had a question about whether or not people will still be moving in even if fall quarter starts online. We are going to be open. We will be having move-in. So, so please plan on being here. If you plan on living on campus, that is happening. So yes, we will be open. We have a question on here about move-in day and what that's gonna look like and stuff. And that is an excellent question. I have some questions about that still as well, because we're trying to figure out the safest way to do that and how to do it in a way that is still helpful to our residents and fun. So stay tuned as far as what move-in day is going to look at. We're strategizing and working through all of that. It's a big undertaking. So typically our move-in day is pretty crazy, and it's tons of people everywhere, and tons of people everywhere isn't really what we're after right now. So we're trying to figure out how best to do that and get everybody moved in as quickly, safely, etc. as possible. And then one other question before I turn another question back over to Sonora. There's a question about what is the penalty for canceling the housing application after May 31st. So we have kind of a tiered approach. I'll put the link to that into the chat. So be looking for that in a second. I'll do that in just a second. We have a tiered approach to how we do that. So after May 31st, the first tier is a $50 charge. And this isn't really about making money for the housing department or anything. It's about encouraging people to let us know what their plans are. Because like many of you are anxious about which buildings are going to be open, we are also very anxious about what buildings will be open, and we want to figure that out. So that's a big part of why we do that way. So I'm going to pop that link into the chat while Sonora answers this question from Emily Powers for us. So Emily lives 6 hours away from campus, and if classes are all online in the fall, Sonora, do you want to talk a little bit? She's asking, is it worth it for me to live on campus and spend the extra money if we're going to be in single rooms by ourselves and stuff? So do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. That's a question we get even not with COVID season. So there are a lot of benefits to living on campus. Now, I think worth, it's something you can decide. Having been someone who has lived on campus from the time I was 18 till now, I can honestly say that I grew the most, learned the most, and enjoyed my college experience so much more because I lived on campus. Now, finances are huge. I don't want to put that down by any means. Some people really need to know that they are getting what they put in financially. And what I will say is I'm not from this area. I'm from Southern California, and my family lives in Georgia. So Washington, moving here was very new for me. And the type of care and enthusiasm the Eastern student has is something that has kept me here, and that I've seen over the last 3 years. People really have a great time. If financially it's something that you can do, yeah, I think we offer, there's still connection even in single rooms. We have a lot of students actually throughout the year who want to live in singles. A lot of students who are like, I like people, but I want my own space. So that's something that we kind of navigate throughout a regular academic year. We still check in with people. We still try to build community and connection with people. And it's still possible because you're going to get to know people on your floor. You'll pass each other. We have communal bathrooms. It's not like you're never going to see another person ever. So yeah, I think it's worth it to live on campus if you're someone who kind of wants to engage in a different way. Again, it will be different, and all the specifics around that, what that will look like. Yeah, we don't have, kind of like Melanie was saying, we're still kind of figuring out what halls are open, what that's going to look like. But I've only actually lived down the street from my undergrad experience, and I'm so glad that I was on campus. I was able to study more. I was able to stay up late, not have my parents kind of wonder why I was up so late. And I got to meet some of my lifelong friends. And I got to just understand college a little bit more, feel more like an adult. Like I got to as open as possible. We want to make sure that you are engaged. And we check in with students and ask what will help you feel engaged, what will help you feel supported. Do you feel seen? We do a lot of surveys, we do a lot of calls, we do a lot of check-ins. We will have student staff that will be around to help with that too. So I hope that answers your question. I can't tell you what makes sense for your family financially, but if it's something that you're able to do and just want to engage in that process, I think it's absolutely worth it. I know a lot of people have really found themselves, their majors, their path, by living on campus.
Okay, Sonora, Nathaniel Bickhart has a question here about, are we allowed to bring TVs and gaming consoles to our dorms? And while the answer is yes, I think it'd be great for you to talk a little bit about just what you've seen, because we see really creative things in the halls and living in there. You can probably speak a little bit to how you've seen people interact using those and room setups and stuff like that. So if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Sure. People love their gaming systems. It is actually really cool to see. Yes, absolutely. You can bring a TV and gaming consoles. We have seen people get very creative with, man, it'd be cool to like show you a room, with moving their in singles, especially. Yes, let me think of a single. So and it kind of touches on another question with the beds that I think Kendall, I hope I said that correctly, touched on having multiple beds. Some halls will have beds in them, but you can, Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong, you can take them down as long as they stay in the room. You can disassemble them, and people will do that and maybe get a chair and they will set up their TVs with their consoles, or have a lot of people with desktop, like those big desktop gaming computers, and they plug those in and have a great time. The other thing too is each of the halls do have some gaming systems. So if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of funds to get to buy a Switch, right? I even know Switches, they're just like out of the world right now. We have them that you can check out. Now the checkout process, how that's gonna work, again, still trying to figure that out, but yes, we absolutely encourage it. So yeah, please bring your stuff. You can set it up. There are different desks that the desks allow for that, or people put them on dressers. Be safe. I wouldn't get like 70-inch plasma. Oh, that's a little too big for a hall. Kind of those like 32 to 40-inch TVs work really well, where you still have space to have a desk, but it's not gonna fall over and you be very sad that your TV may get damaged. So I hope that answered that question.
And to address the single rooms and what the beds will look like. So with having all single rooms, some rooms were intended to be single rooms from the get-go, and other rooms, like we have never had singles in Sinyamansu, for example. And so we don't really have the manpower to get beds out of rooms and stuff like that. So if you are in a room that was always intended to be a single room, it will have one bed in it. And if you are in a room that was intended to be a double or a triple room, you will have 2 or 3 beds in it. As Sonora said, you can take them apart and kind of like lay them down in a corner or underneath the bed that you keep. You can push them together. A lot of people that end up in a room by themselves throughout the school year, because that does happen sometimes. You can choose to have a room as a single in a typical school year. We see a lot of people push those beds together so they can have a king size bed. So it's all up to you about how you want to use your space and what the configuration of your room will allow. But do know that there will be probably more than one bed in your room. Okay, so a couple other questions. There's a question here from Shannon Kavanaugh about Brewster. Since it was already single rooms, is that one of the ones that's going to be available in the fall? Everything's on the table at this point, and so we really aren't making those determinations. I know that's really hard for people. Quite honestly, it's really hard for me because we're trying to get everybody kind of figured out and planned what the puzzle looks like. And this is a crazy year. So as of right now, there's no guarantees about which hall will be open. What I can tell you is, because we have the 2 different rates, we have the standard single rate and a premium single rate, we will have at least 1 standard building open and at least 1 premium building open so that people can access both those rate types. And just as a reminder, Sinyamansu and Brewster are those premium spaces, and the rest of the buildings are standard, with the exception of we have a few, I mean like 7 rooms in Anderson that have bathrooms attached to them, and those will also be at the premium rate since it's not sharing the larger bathroom. And that kind of segues into a question from Annie Payton about what is Anderson Hall like. So Sonora, I think I'll talk a little bit about the structure of Anderson, and then you can talk a little bit about what the community has been like there. So it's mostly double rooms in Anderson. It's a old building that we have remodeled. And so if you know anything about old school architecture, it's that they did not place a lot of value on, say, all the rooms being the same exact size and stuff like that. So it has some kind of funny little quirks to it as far as how big a certain room is. A lot of people want to know, well, how big is a double? Well, that depends, because there's about 8 different sizes of doubles in Anderson. That creates some interesting things, but they are the biggest rooms on our campus. The size of the room typically is the largest rooms on campus. Big windows and stuff like that. There are multiple laundry rooms on each floor, or no, yeah, 2 laundry rooms on each floor. So that kind of spaces that out a little bit. So structurally, it's kind of long hallways with pretty big rooms on either side of each hallway. And then Sonora, if you want to talk a little bit about the community there.
Absolutely. The community is pretty cool in Anderson. It tends to be a lot of returners that live in that hall, with a few new students trickled in. The hard part with Anderson, it tends to get pretty full pretty quickly. It's in a prime location on campus. It's right across the street from the pub and from the rest of campus. So you don't have to look up any hills, which people love. So it tends to be a quieter community. There aren't a lot of lounges. There's one giant lounge on the 2nd floor, but it's an awesome lounge. There are lots of areas to hang out, lots of areas to, there's a piano in there to eat, to hang out, to do different things where you're not feeling like you're getting in anyone else's space. So yeah, I've seen a lot of people really love their community. There's a lot of friendships that exist there, a lot of people who do things together. I've seen a lot of the Anderson residents go to campus events together, go to housing events together. Each hall, I kind of touched on a little bit, has had its own little hall council. So like I said earlier, the students who live in the buildings who come together to kind of decide what we do programmatically and with money. Anderson's super engaged, even though it's a community that's not like traditional first year, that's super religious and loud. They are students who have already lived with us, so they're excited to continue living with us. So the people you interact with in Anderson really love housing. And there have been in the past big events that, like one of the things, like a Winter Warm Fest dance, and they've hosted in the lounge, and lots of people have gone to that and engaged with that. So the one thing to note is it doesn't have an elevator, so it is a lot of stairs. If that's something that is an issue or concern for you, just want to be upfront about that. But most people don't have an issue. Rarely do we have anybody have an issue with that. And yeah, it's a fun place. It's a fun place to be. Very low key if you're someone who also wants to really hone on studying and not have the people having a grand old time above you with loud music and stuff. That more traditional, like that Pierce and Dressler tends to be a more traditional first year hall. Anderson tends to be a little bit different than that. So yeah.
Great, thanks, Sonora.
Yeah.
Emily Munson has a question about prices going up or changing at all, because every room is a single. So I am going to pop the rates sheet into the chat. So check that out there. We did adjust our rates a little bit. And by adjust, I mean, we just kind of settled on what was going to be our double room rate is what our standard single rate will be. And what was going to be the Sinyaman suite double room rate is what our premium single room rate will be. So it was important to us that we didn't, change everything around on you once you had signed up to live on campus. And we wanted that to continue to be accessible for students who are really looking for that experience. So go ahead and check out those rates. Dining also changed their rates a little bit. They went from offering 4 meal plans to offering 2 different meal plan options. So take a look at that. That's a great resource. Morgan Kramer has a question about whether or not we will be able to have visitors in the halls, like having family to visit. So that's a really great question. And it's one that I think will depend somewhat on what phase we're in. It will depend on recommendations that we get from the CDC and the Spokane Regional Health District. As of right now, we're still pretty closed down. And so we're encouraging people not to have a lot of visitors into the halls just to keep exposures limited. But what that will look like in the fall, we're not entirely sure yet. That's one of the elements of move-in day that we're trying to figure out as well. How many people come to help move in? Because sometimes, everybody's coming on move-in day. You've got parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody's helping you move in. And we don't know what the feasibility of that is for this fall. So more to come on that. It's of course our hope that you would be able to, because showing off your first home is really exciting. When you get that all set up just the way you want, and you really own that space as yours, which is exactly what we want you to do. It's really exciting to share that with your friends and family. So it is our hope that that opportunity will be available to you this coming year. Another question kind of in the vein of making your room your own. Here's a question about, is removable wallpaper allowed? So here's what I would tell you. Removable sounds great, but what I can also tell you is that sometimes removable isn't as removable as you think it is. And so I would say you could bring a little bit and test it like in a very bottom corner of your room and see if it pulls the paint off. But what would be really unfortunate is for you to get charged a whole bunch for us having to redo your room. So I would say I don't think it's the greatest idea to do that. Sometimes paint can be really persnickety, and I wouldn't do that if it were me. You could test it, like I said, in a corner if you wanted and take the risk, but I don't know if I think that's a great idea. So Nora, what have you seen about
Yeah.
and stuff with damage?
I was just going to give a little bit of it's not a horror story, but one that I was like, yikes, when we had to do room checks at the end of the year. So typically, and again, all of this, we will see what next year will look like. Typically, we'll do, after students move out, room checks of every room to see like what damage was or wasn't done, make sure we're ready for summer. I had a student who in Pierce, the desks are kind of like a big L around the window, covered the entire desk in washi tape. And washi tape tends to be one that is pretty easy to remove. We couldn't get it off. And it was, she had tried really, really hard. You could tell she had tried to get it off, but it was basically almost like we had to replace it. Custodial had to spend a long time just scrubbing and trying to get stuff off. So, and that's not tape that's even pulls off paint when you put it on anything. So just to give some context in that way, yes, we want you all to make your spaces comfy and cozy and feel like home and not just blank walls. I mean, if you even look at my office, like I have stuff on my corkboards over there, but each room, you know, even in Pierce, and I know there's like a Pierce Dressler difference question I saw, we'll have maybe some corkboard or like places you can put stuff up. Tapestries are a fun thing. They're huge. They're fun. They take up a lot of space, make it feel like home. I've seen a lot of people have fun with those strip lights that change colors, or like fairy lights or stuff like that. Totally recommend that stuff. Anything tape removable, like Melanie said, it kind of isn't. Even command strips sometimes, like in Sinyamin suit, rip paint off the wall. Our maintenance guys are a little more gracious, especially with our older halls, about that, knowing it's going to happen. You can't help a command strip. But and those actually do work in Pierce because our walls are cement. So yeah, I definitely discourage removable wallpaper, mainly so because we don't want to charge you. But like Melanie said, you could try it. I mean, sometimes different products are different, but that was the first time I'd seen someone use tape to decorate their whole desk, and it was cute, but it made them be charged a lot of money for that. So yeah.
A good cautionary tale. Thank you, Sonora.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on it. Can you tell us a little bit about what the difference is between Pierce and Dressler?
I absolutely can. I'm very partial to Pierce because I've been here for 3 years. They are very similar. They are both round buildings. Dressler was built after Pierce, so they're a little bit like structural things that are different. That's probably the biggest difference. So the staircases are right next to the elevator, whereas Pierce, it's a little around the corner. The penthouses, so Pierce and Dressler both have penthouses. Mine is above the 12th floor. You take some stairs and you go up, and there's this really cool area where there's tables, a couch. A lot of people study up there, especially when the weather is really nice. You can see Cheney and part of the football field. The penthouse in Dressler Hall is pretty sweet. You can see a perfect view of the football field, so people who may not want to go and watch football games during the year, if it's cold or whatever, residents will go up there and just kind of watch from above. The structure of the rooms is probably the biggest difference between Pierce and Dressler, and I believe we have some layout stuff on our website that can show it a little bit more. Pierce, you have the beds kind of right next to each other. Dressler has that more traditional one bed on one side of the room and the other bed on the other side. That's not going to matter as much with everyone living in singles, but that kind of gives a little bit of perspective. Pierce follows more of the round type of flow, with the desk being connected to under the window, whereas Dressler, that's not the case. So in terms of community, we're pretty similar, and a lot of people want to think that Pierce and Dressler, I've heard, are like party halls. They're not. It's not a thing that really goes on. Obviously, there are things that happen, but they're fun. They're engaging. People really love to cook in those two halls. I would say people in Pierce do it more. A lot of people use the downstairs kitchen a lot more than they do in Dressler. But yeah, I mean, we do a lot of programmatic things together too, because we kind of call ourselves the towers, and we will do program stuff together. There's a huge lawn in between our halls that we will use to do fun things, end of the year things together. But really, honestly, the difference between the two is is the layouts of the rooms. Pierce is technically closer to the pub and to campus, so it's a less of a hill you have to walk up if you're going to get food and stuff. So I've seen people like that a little bit more. So Dressler does have the basketball courts right outside of it, so super fun. Pierce residents use that too. So it's, yeah, really, it's like, do you want to walk a little bit more? And I think if you have a roommate, that's where it kind of gets a little more different, but obviously that's not necessarily going to be the case in fall, or that won't be the case in fall. So those are the biggest differences.
Sonora, you mentioned cooking, and people like to spread drama and stories about Pierce and fire alarms. Can you address the Pierce fire alarms rumors for us?
I absolutely can address those. So the fire alarms that go off in Pierce are because people like to be great in Pierce. So I actually, and please, universe, love me. I have had no fire alarms this quarter. And my first year we had a few, and a lot of those were cooking things, people just learning how to use a stove, frying things way too high, or leaving things in microwaves with no water, the typical things. My second year, total for the year, we had 10, all because of, a random steam leak here and there, a random thing going off there. Rarely were they pulls. So this year was a lot, but it was because of people. It's people not necessarily providing the best community space for others. But we will have conversations with people if we know what's happening. And the fire department is very stern with people, but fire alarms don't just happen in Pierce. I think that a few years before I was in the building, there was maybe some system error, but since I've been going into 4 years, it's been people who have done things that have set them off, but it's not a consistent issue. When everyone's kind of, encouraging each other, holding each other accountable. So like I said, for the last however long we're into the quarter, I think it's 7 weeks, we're in week 7, I had 0 issues in my building, 0, and people cooking every single day at all hours of the day. So if you're respectful and follow directions, no alarms will happen. So yeah, I think that there are a lot of people, which is awesome to hear, a lot of people who have lived on campus and share their stories of living on campus. I've heard it even at the dentist office, and I can honestly say it's not as big of an issue as you may think it may be. So I promise, if you live in Pierce, you're not going to be woken up every single night by a fire alarm.
You may have noticed that Sonora breezed over left stuff in the microwave without water, as if that's like normal and appropriate. Easy Mac requires water. So if you take nothing else away from today, it should be that Easy Mac requires water. You will start a fire if you do not put water in that little cup. So lock that away.
Yes, even in your own homes, it's very easy to open something and put it in a microwave and just leave it. Don't do that. Just throw some water in there, and also don't put things on for like more than 30 seconds most of the time. I had someone accidentally type in 30 minutes and walk away, and that set something off. So luckily we've had no fires in any of our halls in the last at least 3.5 years. And I don't think before then for a very long time either. So, but yes, please put water in your Easy Macs. Please put water with your ramen, and turn your stoves off. Just do those things, and I promise your life will be great.
Great. Thanks, Sonora. So we've had a few questions come through that are like more questions about decorating. So Julie and Vaughn, you had some questions about tacks or plants, stuff like that. So I'll talk a little bit about this. I was also an Eastern student. I lived in the halls for 3 years. So I can talk a little bit about my experience, and then Sonora can talk to you about things she's seen, because I actually didn't live in the round buildings, but that's where Sonora has spent her time. So we both have a little bit different perspective. As far as tacks go, those are definitely allowed in Sinyamansuit and Brewster, and we would allow them in Streeter if the walls weren't brick. It's just not going to work out for you very well. And also we have cement walls in Pierce and Dressler and stuff. So if you can use a tack, use a tack. But there are going to be places where that's just not going to be an option for you. As far as hooks and stuff in the walls, you can use a hook that will stick on, but we really ask that you don't drill into our walls. that can create some bigger problems that you may not even realize are happening. So as far as hanging plants and stuff like that, we'd prefer you had a beautiful vine that was growing from a pot that was sitting on a shelf, because hooks and stuff like that just don't work out as well for us. What you will find is you may luck into a room where somebody did not listen to me and they put a hook in the wall or in the ceiling, or they screwed a mirror into the closet door or whatever. So, I mean, luck of the draw, those sorts of things may be provided to you, but typically that's not something that you're going to find in a room. However, people get so creative. And so there are going to be lots of different ways that you're going to figure out to decorate your room. I used a lot of duct tape in my day, and like sticky tack, and command strips and hooks, as long as you're careful when removing them, will work without causing too much damage. And then we see people get also just really creative with how they arrange their room and shelving that they bring of their own, or drawer systems, stuff like that. So Sonora, do you have anything to add to any of that?
No, basically that. I think each hall is a little different. Like Melanie said, you cannot get a tack through a wall and pierce. It's not possible. It is pure cement. I tried in my own apartment. Does not work. But command hooks, awesome. Command strips, super great. I haven't had any issues with taking them off in my own space. And when I've done room checks for people, that hasn't been an issue. And they are pretty heavy duty. Like, I have a mirror that's up in my apartment. It's been there for a year, hasn't budged, and it's on those Velcro command strips. So hooks are not great, like Melanie said. I would say people do get pretty creative with putting a lot of art on their walls, and that's super fun, and they use command strips to do that. And especially, I know people love plants and succulents and all that. All the halls have desks. Most of them have desks or areas that have little bookshelves or shelving units where you can put stuff on top of things, so it feels like it's up in the ceiling, and not all on your like desk space to write things down. So yeah, tapestries and lights, and rugs. We don't have carpet in our rooms, at least Pierce, Dressler, Sinyam, and Sue. All of them, I think Brewster does, but all of the other ones are hardwood or linoleum or whatever. They are hard floors. And so rugs have been really great for kind of making that space a little more cozy. And people have had like little beanbag chairs, couches, that kind of thing, small ones. But in terms of decorating, I see a lot of tapestry, a lot of lights, and people really.
Okay, so there are a few questions that I'm going to touch on real quick, some logistics things. So if you were to choose to stay home for fall quarter because your classes are online, but then some classes opened up for fall or something like that, can you still move into the halls? So the easy answer to that is yes. We accept applicants at any time. And Matthias Clother had a question that kind of pairs with that, is how confident are we that we'll have housing for everyone that wants to live on campus? We feel confident that we'll be able to house everybody that wants to be here. So please do, if you haven't yet applied, do apply. It helps us know what buildings to have open if you can apply, and it also will just get your name in the queue. So hopefully you end up in one of the buildings that you really wanted. So those are two logistics things that I think you should keep in mind. Additionally, there are some more questions about move-in. So Matthew Russo, you had a question about move-in, and then Shannon Kavanaugh a little bit about what the first week after move-in will look like. So I would encourage you to watch the webinar that's been posted that orientation did as far as what the week will look like. I know that they're looking at several different models. So we're trying to create maximum flexibility. You'll hear that from Eastern a lot, and that's because we want to provide you the absolute best that we can offer, as long as it's safe and with your health in mind. And so we're trying to keep the doors open on stuff. So orientation is creating several different plans, and we are also doing the same thing. So it's hard for me to make any promises about what things will look like the week of move-in, or even how move-in will work. Matthew, your question was about family coming to help you because you're coming from a great distance. And it is our hope that family will be able to help you. To what degree is kind of the question that we have looming over us right now, and we're figuring that out. We are also going to make ourselves available to help during this process. So we will have a plan in place about how we can do that safely and effectively. So stick with us as we continue to update over the summer. As we have a plan in place, you all will be the first to know. So we will be sending out an updated moving guide. We will post it to our website, and we'll be sending you emails and all that stuff. So be checking your Eastern email for updates about what everything is going to look like, orientation and move-in. Another quick operations type question before I bump some stuff back over to Sonora. How will meal plans and dining work? So the way that meal plans are going to work is a little bit different than they have worked the past few years. So meal plans are going to be made up of a la carte, which is basically like a debit card account. I mean, that's really how that works. And then the other part is a flex account. And the flex account is cool because you can use it on campus, but you can also use it at some businesses that we've partnered with off campus here in Cheney. So that's really cool. It provides you some flexibility and some places to go, and you can also use it in the bookstore. So, you know, you're short on cash and coming up on Christmas, you can buy mom a present in the bookstore with your flex dollars if you want to do that. So there are different ways that you can spend that money. As far as how dining is going to be operating, they're still finalizing what locations will be open. For sure, there will be service in the pub. Whether or not it's super limited like it has been, where it's all grab and go, or how much you get to hang out in the pub and dine like you're at a restaurant, is all kind of up in the air. And that's another part of that phases approach. I am really getting tired of just having to tell you over and over, we don't know for sure yet. And I know that you're tired of hearing it. So we are working through those things, and we hope to be able to have some even clearer answers for you soon. Sonora, here's a question from Shannon Kavanaugh about which halls are great for transfer students. And I just wondered if you might have some insight on that, having worked with, especially if you want to talk a little bit about RHA and the work you've done with them, and then segue into that question about transfer students, because that's a good way for you to have had exposure to them.
Absolutely. So one of my roles this last year has been to be the advisor for our student organization called the Residence Hall Association. And that association is basically what I like to kind of coin the phrase, for the students, by the students. So it's a group of students who all live on campus, who come together in kind of like an associated student body, if you've heard of that at high schools, coming together to talk about how to engage students in the different kind of phases of life that they're in. So we do programming for all of the halls, and I'm going to use just our past experience in terms of like numbers. So when we had 7 full halls, RHA would kind of have a representative from each of the halls on those hall councils I mentioned come together with an executive board, and they would talk about different programs people want to see, different needs that are happening. So one of the things RHA started 2 years ago was a feminine hygiene drive, a feminine hygiene project that put feminine hygiene products in the female restrooms on the first floors, I believe, of all the halls, because there was a need. And so students come together to talk about the needs that residents are facing and just the desires residents are facing. So yeah, that's what RHA is for. It's also opportunity to go to conferences, get some more leadership experience, work with campus partners across campus, and we hope to have that in the fall. So if you're interested in being involved and kind of helping us form this connection across a virtual world, across a COVID world, we want that to happen. In terms of buildings for transfers, we've seen quite a, it's kind of personality based. It's kind of a vague answer to that. I've seen transfers in Pierce Hall, which tends to have a lot more first year students, have a lot of fun because they want to engage with the more excited, like, I'm in college, I want to be here, yes, let's do the things. And some transfer students have really loved that because they didn't get that experience at their previous institutions. Then we've had some transfers who are like, I may be a little bit older, I don't really want to engage with that young 18-year-old who just is a lot. And that's not really my scene anymore. So I've seen kind of Anderson and Brewster tend to attract transfers a lot more. Again, we don't know which halls are going to be open, but if those are, they're a little bit more kind of reserved, I guess you could say. Now the difference is those halls had a lot more single options. With there being singles in all the halls, that is our plan. It's not going to be this rambunctious kind of experience, I think, that has been tied to like a first year experience as much, quite honestly. But I have seen I have seen in the past Anderson and Brewster tend to attract transfers who are a little bit more focused on academics, just want to get it done, don't want to super hear all the things happening all the time. Also seen transfers really love Pierce. I've seen transfers really love Streeter. St. Yaman's I've seen the least amount of transfer students there. St. Yaman's tends to be the one that is a little bit more on the rambunctious side. A lot of athletes live there. It has, in the past, has a lot of people who are going into the STEM majors, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I believe that is what it is. So it's been a hodgepodge of people. So yeah, it's going to be different within this kind of new framework, which I know we keep saying over and over, and everyone's going to say that. But if it's an option, if those two halls are an option, Brewster and Anderson, I have some people really love those communities. So yeah.
The other opportunity that we have for transfer students this year that we haven't typically had in the past is our university apartments. And so if you feel like apartment living, but that is also very connected to campus would be a good option for you, please shoot us an email and request the apartments. We have a few spaces left, and you have to be a transfer student over the age of 21 or a student who has already lived with us for 1 year in order to live there. So those spaces are going pretty quickly. So if that seems like something that might be a good fit for you as well, definitely reach out to us. Our email is right there in my name. So go ahead and reach out to us and let us know that's something you'd be interested in. While I'm talking about the apartments really quickly, Elizabeth, you had a question about if you applied for the apartments and then fall ends up being online. So the contract, the way that the contracts are going to go is very similar to how things are in the halls. So you're still welcome to live there. The apartments are open, online or not online. If you decide you don't want to live there, the same cancellation penalties will apply. So just keep that in mind. We have a few more questions in here, and we're going to try and get through them quickly because we only have about 7 minutes left. You have all been awesome asking us questions. If you have the question, somebody else probably is wondering the same thing. So just really quickly, here's another question from Marianne Gibbons about the apartments and whether or not they are furnished. Our apartments are not furnished. You would need to provide your own furnishings. However, what I would say is you can rent a bed from us if you don't want to purchase a bed. So it would be a twin mattress like what you would experience in the halls, and we can have one of those put in for you. So if you're interested in living in the apartments or you've applied for there, again, the housing email would be a great place for you to request that bed. And then Julian Vaughn, you had a question about, are we trying to get you near your roommates? So everybody who has confirmed a roommate pair in your housing application by June 30th, we are going to be doing everything in our power. I mean, obviously as space allows, but we are going to be doing absolutely everything we can to place you right next door to your roommate. So we understand you are very excited about living with your roommate and having that experience. And while you won't be in the same room, you should be right next to each other. So please make sure you're a confirmed roommate pair if that is something that is important to you. And then this last question that I'm showing in here is from Eve Parker, and it's just, so what do you think will happen this fall? That's a great question. And here's what I think will happen without getting into a bunch of super specifics. What I think is going to happen this fall is that just like the end of your senior year, or if you're a transfer student, the end of whatever year of school you're finishing was weird, I think it's going to be weird. I think we as professionals have never done anything like this before. It's entirely new. that being said, I think I have seen people rise to this and support other people in ways that I haven't seen, quite frankly, in a long time. And it's showing us how much we need people, how much we need each other, and how reliant we are on each other, and that we're not meant to do any of this alone. And so what I can tell you is that I think you will see, if you choose Eastern and beyond that you choose living on campus, which we hope that you will, I think you will see and feel that rallying around you. And so I can't say definitively like how many people are going to be allowed in your room at a time, or whether you're going to be able to eat with all your friends in the pub, or even if the library is going to be a place that you'll get to do group studying. I don't have any real sense of that. It's kind of a mystery to me right now. But what I can tell you is that we're going to be doing absolutely everything we can to make this the college experience that you've kind of been dreaming of for a long time. And I know that missing out on graduations and stuff like that has been really, really hard. And we want to make sure that this next milestone of starting college, which is so exciting, is still absolutely special. And there's no reason that it can't be, regardless of what restrictions there are on us. So we have one other question that I'm going to answer in there. I'll answer directly because that's a specific one about classes. But Sonora, do you have any last comments? We have just a couple minutes.
Yeah, no, I think Melanie summed it up really great. We don't know has become the phrase of the year. And personally, that's not the phrase I like. I don't enjoy hearing I don't know, but I have learned a lot through COVID and problem solving. And I think something that I have seen with even our students we've had on campus through this quarter, they are thinking of their family, you know, and how they can help them in reducing risk of the virus and all that. And they also are just like, it's just good for me to not be home. And I think something that we like to tell you all is like, yes, living on campus, it's a space to live. But those of us who especially work in housing, we're here because we want you to grow and learn as not just a student, but as a person. And so we really are working really hard, and myself with student leadership, really trying to find different ways we can do this to make your experience a fun, holistic one, and one where you feel so supported and so seen as a person, not just a student. So I'm just going to basically start saying everything Melanie said, but we love what we do. We want y'all here. We miss residents. I miss residents. I live here. I haven't left. I live in the building. All the professionals live in the buildings. It is so weird to not have people just roaming around, stopping in my office. So we need y'all. We want to see y'all. We're so excited to see you in the fall. Thank you for wanting to live with us. It really, it shaped my life as a student. I know it shaped Melanie's life as a student. We could probably all cry about it, but know that we love what we do, and we really want to make your experience great.
Thank you all so much for being here with us today, and really great participation with tons of great questions. The housing email address is right down here. That is the best way to reach us and get your questions answered right now. As you can imagine, telecommuting, it can be a little bit challenging to get to the phone every single time. So that email, we're for sure to get back to you that way. And we really look forward to actually seeing you soon. And welcome to Eastern. Go Eags.